Hello, everybody. So, um, well, in this channel, I always talk about things that are on my mind and I want to figure them out. And it's a very work in progress sort of episodes that I am uploading here. So, like, the whole channel should be called like work in progress or thoughts out loud or thinking out loud, whatever. Um, and I'm not expecting anybody to listen to me and to be able to get anything out of this because I know this is empty, kind of empty. Sometimes I spell out some gems that I cut myself off guard by doing so as well. So it's kind of like thinking out loud, like getting to know myself by speaking to myself or getting to know how my mind works. It's like journaling, but in a very auditory way. So here goes my journaling, I guess. And something very funny about that is that I actually wanted to talk about journaling. I think I talked about it in one of my videos in my channel, but I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the importance of it and how it can change you as a person and change your perspective in general. And I come from a place, so if I were to like give you a very brief background of where I come from, why do I feel journaling is like the only way out of any chaotic problem that you might be facing, is to give you like this brief background is like I am an artist. Okay, I've always been an artist. From the moment I like stepped foot in school, I was kind of famous for being good at art. And then after college, I kind of wanted to do art for a while, so I made a channel about art entirely. Like it was like it was something that I never thought I would be doing. So like I never thought that art can become something that I do as a career or even as a serious hobby. So like it was very subtle and it was very in the background. Sometimes I would go on and sketch something in my sketchbook. It wasn't something that I wanted to like force myself to learn or to explore further. So it was a chill talent that I had passively harbored in my mind for quite a long time. And then it came to this like choice of like doing something creative because I want to I want to like not spoil like what's the word for it, I wanted to not not be unappreciative of what sort of gift I've been given. So I wanted to know my limit in that area. Not my limit, but like how much I can expand my abilities. And well, I did made a channel. I did make a channel and was very much successful. I made like people were actually subscribing to my channel so much because they were enjoying watching my videos, and I kind of had like 8,000 subscribers, and I just left it. I just left it because I felt like that wasn't my calling. I felt like it wasn't something that I wanted to spend time on so much. So I I left it for a while, and even now no longer have any kind of intention to go on and make videos on art. It was mostly like digital art, so I would draw something on my iPad and I would have some sort of voiceover on it, talking about creativity, talking about how to come up with ideas and how to be able to like draw in a more like effortless way. So that like just because it was very effortless for me, it was very like the creative process was kind of taking over and I wasn't learning so much to implement those ideas, but kind of like naturally having those ideas, which was very like bizarre to me and like very strange to me that I could just come up with ideas on the spot without learning too much about art or learning the structure of each kind of like the anatomy or whatever you learn to get better at art. I'm not very apt to speak on that professionally, which is not something that I did. So like I didn't speak professionally about like art and how you can, draw something. I can't do it, even if I wanted to do it. But I was talking about it in terms of like how your intellect can help you come up with ideas and how you can become creative by doing art. So it wasn't like art wasn't actually the biggest like topic that I was talking about. It was more about how your mind comes up with these ideas and how you can exceed that process so that it can easily make you like it can easily give you some sort of like sparkle of imagination, whatever. I'm not even making sense at this point, but what I wanted to say is that that is like how I am as a person. I'm quite a like geared toward creativity, geared toward ideas and exploring my internal space, my internal world. And it's always been like that. Whenever I go on and sketch something in my sketchbook, I feel so creative. I feel like the world is just expanding itself to me, like it's opening itself to me, and specifically to me. So like I feel very personal about coming up with those imaginative ideas. So and also at the same time, it's like how I kind of release all of my pressures, internal like built up of whatever anxiety provoking problems I've been facing, whatever. It's like all of it is going to be regurgitated, but in another way. Not like that's not the best word here, but kind of like emptying myself up of all those negative feelings and negative thoughts, and doing it in a very productive manner because I'm coming up with ideas. I'm exploring my own psyche in a way. I'm getting to know myself better, and that was happening actually in the process of me sketching and filling up these sketchbooks. I was getting to know myself and how I think. How can I think better or think more creatively? So that was being given to me. The knowledge of that was kind of opening itself up to me. And so, like I feel like okay, so that's good. You're exploring the visual realm and you're coming up with these sketches, these like structures that you're trying to ideate and all of that. That's good. That's good, okay? But at the same time, I felt like there's something missing here. There's a component, an aspect that I am not paying attention too much to. And so I felt like I'm not growing as much as I wanted to grow. It's like I wanted to read more. I wanted to verbalize stuff. I wanted to think verbally and not just like so much visually. Because visual thinking can help you in so many ways, and it can help you in planning strategic like strategic processes that you have to take in order to live a better life, that's for sure. But at the same time, there's a dimension that you need to explore even further. It's not like visual thinking is not the highest level of thinking. I would say visual thinking is actually very kind of like in a lower stage. So it would be the the way a person without any literacy can think, a person who's like completely like out of the society and never grew up around people using language. They would be like using these images in their mind to think and to kind of live their life. But that's a very primitive way of thinking, in my opinion. I'm not very knowledgeable on this topic and in this realm of talking. This is just not my forte. So I don't want to be authoritative. I don't want to be having any sort of say in this, because I'm just speculating. That's all it is. And the whole podcast is all about speculating. So I feel like it's a very much more like a immature way of thinking. So like a more mature way of thinking would be to have your verbal thinking assist you in the process of figuring things out. And like it is actually like in a way truthful that visual thinking is primitive way of thinking, because if you talk about like verbal thinking, it's much more abstract. It talks about concept that you can't physically find in the real world. So it's more geared toward like creativity and coming up with ideas. Like it's much more conducive to to a very intellectual mind. So in order to become intellectual, you can't just like sketch or vision your way into it. You have to read. You have to like have so much verbal fluency in order to have a high running sort of machine in your mind, so that like you have vocabularies. I would say my thinking is can go as far as my vocabulary, and that's been very true for me on so many levels. In personal life, in professional life, I've always been kind of using the power of my verbal thinking to such a great extent, and it's been helping me discover ways of doing things that I don't normally think about, because it is a very abstract way of thinking. So abstraction normally comes from abstract thinking would be like verbal thinking, in my opinion. I'm not sure, I'm not literate in that front, on that front, but that's what I think it is. So yeah, I was saying that in the past I was doing so much sketching and not so much like journaling. So then I decided that I'm going to do journaling, because I felt like there's a big aspect of my thinking that is not growing just because I'm working on something else. And so I switched to journaling, and I wanted to treat it like art. I wanted to treat it like my sketchbook. So I went on to just talk about stuff or just speculate on ideas and concepts that were just so unknown to me and so far fetched, just because I wanted to have that exploratory aspect, so that it becomes an exciting thing. Because whenever I went on to sketch, my sketching processes was like so much different from all the other people. Like I know that people normally sketch because they like the shape of certain stuff. I do that as well, but I did it more geared toward like how can I come up with my own way of doing it. So it was like very creative, very exploratory, very like unknown to me. Like I was just going into it without having so much prior planning, prior vision in my mind of how the sketch is going to turn out. So I wanted that element, that beautiful catharsis that I was feeling in art, to be transferred into my writing as well. And so I decided that I'm gonna start my writing by just like one word. So I would write, like, for example, I would write language, or I would write, I mean, I'm giving such a banal example on the spot right now, because I mess up all the time on the spot. But like let's say it was me talking about creativity, for example. Like I would say creativity, I would write creativity, or I would write like abstract words like brevity, some words that I really enjoy, or saying like delicate. Talk about delicate. Like how can you talk about something as abstract as delicate? Those words are like things that I was very words that I was very fond of. I would write it at the entrance of my page, and I would try to come up with sentences, and then ideas, and then concept, and like next thing you know, I was coming up with an entire premise, with an entire basis of how that can work in that abstract realm. Like it was like becoming this huge discourse by itself, and I didn't have to do anything. I just wanted to discover word by word. I just went along, and I thought to myself, how can I approach this more artistically? And I did it by approaching it word by word. So I went on word by word. I didn't have any kind of structure. So like I feel like this is actually a concept in writing as well. They say gardeners and architectures, or no, archaeologists. Yeah, I feel like no. I don't know. There's this concept that in writing, that you either like having an outline and going on a very planned, strategic structured way of writing, or you are more of a creative, kind of like all over the place, spread out sort of a writer who's just doing it on the spot and kind of reading it along with writing it. So that's me. That's what I was doing. I was trying to make the process of writing to become the process of reading, which is a weird way of saying it, I know, but it was becoming a process of discovery. I'd rather was like observing what was coming on to me, to my mind, rather than just, having my writing to be very structured and to kind of like try to figure it out as like a mathematical equation. No, I was just kind of very spontaneous about it. And that spontaneity was giving me so much joy because I was coming up with unexpected ideas and unexpected turns of events. And that was how journaling became very appealing to me. The notion of it was like, man, I've been missing that part in my life. I am gonna get that back, and I'm never ever going to let it go. That's gonna be the center of my attention from now on, and I will be doing it for the entirety of my life. It's like, yeah, I figured something else that is gonna be much more productive, and it's gonna be productive in a sense that like it leads to a better mind. So I was trying to do something that can lead to that point. And so I would say, even when I'm like, so when I'm writing, I try to force myself to come up with words that I never use on a daily basis. So it's like not a mundane sort of word. It's not an everyday word. It's just such a word that you can only find in literature, in works of literature, and or in scientific works, or kind of like academic works. So I like using academic words because they just like give me this sense of being highly capable of thinking. I don't know what that is. They make me think creatively. So that's the power of expressive words. Like, they are eloquent, they are articulate, and they give you clarity of thoughts so that you come up with even more thoughts. Then you can expand your thoughts into so many branches, and that can lead to so much discovery and so much like ambiguity kind of clearing out. So it's about time to finish this podcast here. And I know that I didn't talk too much about anything tangible, and that's kind of how I go on to produce these things, because I don't care. I'm here to think, and that's all I'm gonna do. And there's no pressure here. This is not a channel for me to be pressured into saying things that are highly accurate. These are just my speculations, and like, it's not to be taken seriously. So please take it with a grain of salt. And this is just my experience. I don't have any grand knowledge on this. Maybe at some point in the future, I might discover something that is kind of like the opposite of what I'm experiencing right now. So, like, who knows? This is just like work in progress. So thank you for listening to me. If you were listening, if there's anybody existing right now that is listening to the end of the till the end of the podcast, I don't think so, but yeah, thank you.